chapter is extremely proud to provide our support to the Reclaiming the Sky Resiliency Essay Initiative. When we learned about this amazing contest that ultimately provides today's generation of employees with an opportunity to tell how they have learned from our generation of 9/11 heroes, profiled in the Reclaiming the Sky, we raised our hands high.
I'm Dick Williams, Executive Secretary of the chapter, and my familiarity with Tom goes back into the 80s when we got into a program to help customer service raise quality levels. That was back at Newark Airport and the Port Authority. And from that, Tom has had over 30 years supporting aviation issues, especially in the Edge for Vets program, where he seeks to get veterans leaving the military positions at work.
Thank you, Carl, for that introduction, and Dick for the kind words and for the leadership out of the Northeast chapter, AAAE, joining with a whole collaborative of aviation partners to get this Reclaiming the Sky project going. Grateful to you. You see below, as Carl and Dick mentioned, Human Resiliency Institute at Fordham. I'm Tom Murphy. I'm the director of the Institute. First, I'd like to just acknowledge on the point about the courage of the aviation workers on 9/11 and in the aftermath to get the country going again. You see on the right there, and you might need to move your tiles a little bit to see the profile of Captain Terry Thames. He was a pilot for American Airlines. And as we know, on 9/11, Flight 77 left Washington, D.C., Dulles, on its way to Los Angeles. And it was hijacked and crashed into the Pentagon. The whole country was shut down for 4 days. And after 4 days, aviation playing a lead role to get the country going again, the airspace was opened up. And that plane that you see in the photo, that is the plane that would have been Flight 77 returning from Los Angeles to Dulles. It was the first flight back. And Captain Thames, as he pulled the plane to the gate, opened his window, and he put out that American flag in a very powerful statement about how the country would not be defeated, and aviation would not be defeated, and we as a people would not be defeated, and aviation was going to lead the way. There were stories about the brave police and the brave firemen, firewomen, you know, all worthy stories, but there was no story about the people on the aviation side. And so Reclaiming the Sky became the inside story of, as you see in the first bullet there, aviation workers. Boston, New York, Newark, Washington, D.C., ordinary Americans who came into work that day and rose up under the extraordinary circumstances of an attack on the country. They rose up not just that day, but then in the weeks and months and followed, to reclaim the sky, to take back hope, to show the way, to get America moving again. You know, and we often hear the term never forget, but you know, as it happens, time can go in. This is 20 years ago. Unless we come up with ways to take never forget and put it into action. And that's what this project is designed to do. Go take those principles of resiliency and courage and put them into a project that workers and students can use today. That becomes an action statement around never forget, so that we can keep those stories of our brave colleagues from that period alive and current, which they are, and we want them to be always. Acknowledging that COVID-19 is a different kind of crisis, a different kind of tragedy. Nevertheless, the COVID crisis, it calls upon the same kinds of strengths to respond and bounce back and take back hope. And that is, you know, resiliency. How do we bounce back? And our point, you heard, you know, Carl and his introduction and Dick acknowledge that the stories of the the strength that the aviation workers in Boston, New York, Newark, Washington, up in the air and with the airlines, that the strengths that they reached down and found for themselves to bounce back from 9/11 can be the same strengths that people today can learn from and apply. So that's what we're seeking to do. The essay contest, and again, I encourage you to go to reclaimingthesky.com. You'll see all the details on it. But there are going to be 3 categories. One is for airport workers, and there'll be $1,000 prizes for each of the categories. And we're going to name the award in the airport category for Sue Bear, profiled in the book, certainly, whom we lost to cancer in 2016, and just, a deep, deep loss for all of us. And so we want to make sure that we give Sue tribute in this project as well. So we're going to name the airport award in her name. The airline worker for the flight attendant and the pilot category will be named for Ken and Jennifer. And the student award, college and high school students will have the chance to compete and write an essay, will be named for Marianne and Jesus. And then there will be several honorable mention awards, and we'll name those for Betty Ong. And saying that, as we get ready to wrap up, I did not want to make this too long today. I wanted to give you a sense of what this is, and then we'll record it so that folks can take it and share it out. But I do want to acknowledge, how grateful I am personally for the support that some of the folks that I profile in the book, others who were centrally involved in 9/11, are providing for the project and have offered to become judges for us. And on the right, you see On My Watch, which is a book that Virginia Buckingham, who was the executive director of Massport, which ran Logan Airport, she wrote this book that came out last year about the inside story of what it was like to lead Logan through that crisis. And I'm not sure if Jenny is with us today, but if you are, Jenny, if you could unmute yourself and just acknowledge the courage that your workers in Boston showed.
Hey, everybody. Hey, Tom. Thanks so much for having me. I'm just privileged, I think, to be part of this project. And it was the honor of a lifetime to lead the men and women at Logan Airport through 9/11 and to bring that airport back to operation, but also to support each other and to support the families of the flights who came to the airport looking for answers. And when we didn't have any, as you guys know, it was a shock and took a long time to understand what had happened. I love this project because I love that it not only honors the past, but it brings those lessons and those heroes into the present and into the future, which I think is so important. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the essays come forward and just to be part of this honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. That's a wonderful point about the past and making it, the present and into the future, because these stories, are compelling. They can be instructive, and as you're right, they can be, something that people today can use to help them meet challenges today. So thank you for being a judge. Very grateful to you for everything that you've done for aviation, and I encourage folks to take a look at your book, which is a marvelous story of courage of a woman at the center of things and how you did it. So thank you for writing the book, and thank you for being a judge. I want to acknowledge also on the American Airline flight attendant side, Tony Nisley and Debbie Rowland are going to be judges. Tony was the flight service manager for the DCA base. The flight attendants on flight 77 were hers. When I say hers, they reported to her. They were her, close friends, colleagues. But you know how it is. They're more than just people who report to her. They were family to her, and she just showed tremendous courage in terms of working with Debbie, another leader of the DCA base, to do projects to commemorate those who were lost. So Tony and Debbie are not with us today. The both of them are doing other jobs, but I did want to acknowledge them and acknowledge also the flight attendants from the United side. As I mentioned, the profits for the book go to, yes, the Betty Young Foundation, but also to the American Airline flight attendants. By the way, Debbie Rowland, before retiring, was the president of Wings, which is that American Airlines flight attendant charity. And then on the cause side, which is the flight attendant charity for United Airlines, both Eileen Amiano and Judy Greenspan are members of that, but also judges with us. And Judy is not with us today. She's still a hardworking flight attendant and is working today. She's vice president of Cause. We're very grateful to her for all of her help to get word out to the flight attendant community at United about this project. But I believe Eileen is there, and I just want to acknowledge Eileen because Eileen was a flight attendant supervisor on 9/11. She had been a long time United Airlines flight attendant, but by 9/11 she had moved into the supervisor ranks. And that morning she had coffee with, and part of one of the flight attendants she was training, Cece Lyles, who then, after having coffee with Eileen that morning, got on Flight 93 and was on Flight 93 that crashed in Shanksville. And I'm not sure if Eileen is there, but I'd love to, give you a chance, Eileen, if you are, just to underscore the courage from the flight attendant side.
Good morning, everyone. Lucky, privileged, and so grateful to be a part of this project as well. What we did afterwards still resonates to all of us at Newark. Our monument in Shanksville, which is not part of the National Monument, still stands, and we visit every 5 years. We are in the process, Judy and I are now in the process of getting ready to go out to Shanksville again on the 20th anniversary, putting together a bus trip in order to do that. But this is resurrecting a lot, Tom, to be a part of this, and thank you so much for including me.
Thank you to you and Judy on the flight attendant side. We've got leaders on the airport side, and I'll talk also about on the school side in a moment. But I want to thank you, Eileen, for all that you have done and that you do. So thank you enormously. Port Authority Police, Tom Inez, he's a humble person, but Tom, I'm going to ask you to just say a quick hello. Tom, as folks know, Port Authority Police, whenever there was an emergency any place in the system, they rushed to it. And as the buildings were burning at Ground Zero, people obviously were rushing away. Well, Tom was one of the police officers who raced to it and was there on the ground as the buildings were burning, directing people to safety. And then not only that, following that day, as I mentioned, these are folks who rose up in the weeks and months that followed. Tom every night went back to the, as they call it, the pile, and contributed his services there on the recovery effort. So, I know you're a humble guy, Tom, but we're enormously proud to have you as part of our judging team. And if you are there, if you want to just unmute yourself and say a quick hello about your Port Authority police brethren.
Good afternoon. Yes, I am quiet and humble, but being a cop, you tend to branch out sometimes. We were more impressed with how the airport community got together after the attack, and Sue Bear was instrumental, along with our captain, creating a PA family center so that we could help the families get information, even though there wasn't that much information coming out. That was probably one of the things that kept us together during the 12-hour shifts. And then working with the airport community, with Homeland Security, with the TSA program, it was interesting. Stuff I wouldn't want to go back to, but I'm glad I was part of it, and now I'm enjoying retirement. Thank you.
Tom, thank you. And again, I started by saying you are a humble guy, you certainly are. but a very, courageous guy. And I can tell you that we've already, done some of this project with students already. And the story about what you and your police did by rushing, to the emergency while everybody necessarily was rushing out, really struck those young people. So thank you for your service then, and thank you for being a judge, Tom. Grateful. And I'd like to also acknowledge Cedric Fulton. Cedric was the head of the Port Authority bus terminal during this period when I was doing the customer service training for the airports and for the Port Authority. The day before 9/11, I was down there with Cedric at the bus terminal, and I vividly remember, going into the office where the Port Authority police had their office at the bus terminal, and obviously the next day, as we heard from Tom, when there's an emergency, they rush to it, and everybody in that room that day, rushed to it, and several were lost. So an enormous courage, and as Tom said, that it was what they did after to reach down and find that courage to keep going. So Cedric, I'd love to give you, if you're there, a chance to acknowledge the heroism on the Port Authority side.
Absolutely, and good morning, everyone, and I'm humbled to be here to talk about this group of people. 9/11 changed my life like it did, I'm sure, most of the people here on this call, in terms of the recognition of the importance of family and life, mission, team, and leadership. Forever changed. I joined the Port Authority in 1992, and when I got there, one of the first things I was told was that you have to meet Sue Bear because she's a rock star. We probably weren't using that term then, but that was the message that was conveyed. And indeed, that proved to be the case. She was iconic, and everybody who ever met her recognized her for her not just leadership acumen, but also her humanity. And that's what certainly touched my heart. The interesting thing, I wanted to be like Sue Bear when I grew up. Interestingly, she ran bridges and tunnels. I ran bridges and tunnels, and then she went off to aviation. I got to spend 1 year in aviation working for her in Bill Dakota, but then I got called back to tunnels and bridges. I say unfortunately, but this is an amazing tribute of the skills and resiliencies that are necessary for the not just the aviation industry, I have to say the transportation industry as whole, to grab hold on it, to recognize what it takes to move forward. I retired from the MTA after I left the Port Authority. I'm now on the board of New Jersey Transit, and transit's hurting pretty bad right now, as is aviation. And I believe that these competencies and these skill sets and the lessons that people are going to write about in these essays really are going to be helpful and transformational for our next generation of leaders. So I'm just so honored to be a part of this, and I can't wait to read them, and I look forward to working with all of you.